Life is a constant battle between the will to live and the suffering it entails. Compassion is the basis of morality. Man can do what he wills, but he cannot will what he wills. The two enemies of human happiness are pain and boredom. Talent hits a target no one else can hit. Genius hits a target no one else can see. Every man takes the limits of his own field of vision for the limits of the world. Happiness is an illusion, fleeting and ephemeral. We forfeit 3/4 of ourselves in order to be like other people. The greatest achievement of the human intellect is its ability to comprehend its own limitations. The world is my representation. The more unintelligent a man is, the less mysterious existence seems to him. Life swings like a pendulum between pain and boredom. Genius may have its limitations, but stupidity is not thus handicapped. A man can be himself only so long as he is alone, and if he does not love solitude, he will not love freedom. To be alone is the fate of all great minds. The greatest wisdom is to make the enjoyment of the present the supreme object of life. The wise man knows that it is better to sit on the banks of a remote mountain stream than to be emperor of the whole world. The person who seeks all his applause from outside has his happiness in another's keeping. Talent is like the marksman who hits a target which others cannot reach. Genius is like the marksman who hits a target others cannot even see. Life is short, and truth works far and lives long. Let us speak the truth. Money is human happiness in the abstract, and so the man who is no longer capable of enjoying such happiness in the concrete sets his whole heart on money. The person who writes for fools is always sure of a large audience. Hope is the confusion of the desire for a thing with its probability. It is difficult to find happiness within oneself, but it is impossible to find it anywhere else. The greatest of follies is to sacrifice health for any other kind of happiness. A man can be himself only so long as he is alone, and if he does not love solitude, he will not love freedom. The first 40 years of life give us the text, the next 30 supply the commentary on it. Mostly it is loss which teaches us about the worth of things. It is the characteristic of the magnanimous man to ask no favor but to be ready to do kindness to others. Every possession and every happiness is but lent by chance for an uncertain time, and may therefore be demanded back the next hour. The greatest discovery of any generation is that a human being can alter his life by altering his attitude. Politeness is to human nature what warmth is to wax. To live alone is the fate of all great souls. We forfeit 3/4 of ourselves to be like other people. Every truth passes through 3 stages before it is recognized. In the first, it is ridiculed. In the second, it is opposed. In the third, it is regarded as self-evident. Talent develops in tranquility, character in the full current of human life. All truth passes through 3 stages. First, it is ridiculed. Second, it is violently opposed. Third, it is accepted as self-evident. A man's delight in looking forward to and hoping for some particular satisfaction is a part of the pleasure flowing out of it, enjoyed in advance. But this is afterward deducted, for the more we look forward to anything, the less we enjoy it when it comes. The person who seeks all their applause from outside has their happiness in another's keeping. The closing years of life are like the end of a masquerade party, when the masks are dropped. What separates two people most profoundly is a different sense and degree of cleanliness. Suffering by nature or chance never seems so painful as suffering inflicted on us by the arbitrary will of another. Just remember, once you're over the hill, you begin to pick up speed. We can come to look upon the deaths of our enemies with as much regret as we feel for those of our friends, namely, when we miss their existence as witnesses to our success. A sense of humor is the only divine quality of man. The pleasure in this world, it has been said, outweighs the pain, or, at any rate, there is an even balance between the two. If the reader wishes to see shortly whether this statement is true, let him compare the respective feelings of two animals, one of which is engaged in eating the other. There is only one inborn error, and that is the notion that we exist in order to be happy. There is no absurdity so palpable but that it may be firmly planted in the human head if you only begin to inculcate it before the age of 5, by constantly repeating it with an air of great solemnity. The memory should be specially taxed in youth, since it is then that it is strongest and most tenacious. But in choosing the things that should be committed to memory, the utmost care and forethought must be exercised, as lessons well learned in youth are never forgotten. Every truth passes through 3 stages before it is recognized. In the first, it is ridiculed. In the second, it is violently opposed. In the third, it is accepted as self-evident. Health is not everything, but without health, everything is nothing. Honor is not to be won, it must only not be lost. The act of birth is the first experience of anxiety, and thus the source and prototype of the affect of anxiety. Man is the only animal that can remain on friendly terms with the victims he intends to eat until he eats them. Happiness is a state of mind, not a state of circumstances. Great men are like eagles, and build their nest on some lofty solitude. Pleasure is never as pleasant as we expected it to be, and pain is always more painful. The pain in the world always outweighs the pleasure. If you don't believe it, compare the respective feelings of 2 animals, one of which is eating the other. It is only at the first encounter that a face makes its full impression on us. Change alone is eternal, perpetual, immortal. Wealth is like sea water. The more we drink, the thirstier we become. And the same is true of fame. The love of money is the root of all evil. The truth that many people never understand until it is too late is that the more you try to avoid suffering, the more you suffer. The greatest of all follies is to be ashamed of one's own existence. Treat a work of art like a prince. Let it speak to you first. Every nation ridicules other nations, and all are right. The first step in the evolution of ethics is a sense of solidarity with other human beings. A man's face, as a rule, says more and more interesting things than his mouth, for it is a compendium of everything his mouth will ever say, in that it is the monogram of all this man's thoughts and aspirations. The happiness of one's own heart alone cannot satisfy the soul. One must try to include, as necessary to one's own happiness, the happiness of others. To find out your real opinion of someone, judge the impression you have when you first see a letter from them. A man can be himself only so long as he is alone, and if he does not love solitude, he will not love freedom. For it is only when he is alone that he is really free. No one can escape from their individuality. Without books, God is silent, justice dormant, natural science at a stand, philosophy lame, letters dumb, and all things involved in darkness. Intellect is invisible to the man who has none. Genius is talent carried to the infinite. Life is a constant process of dying. Honor is like an island, rugged and without a beach. Once we have left it, we can never return. Our vanity is hardest to wound precisely when our pride has just been wounded. There is no doubt that life is given us, not to be enjoyed, but to be overcome. If we were not also interested in ourselves, life would be so uninteresting that none of us would be able to endure it. We can never know what to want, because, living only one life, we can neither compare it with our previous lives nor perfect it in our lives to come. The safest way of not being very miserable is not to expect to be very happy.